On January 6, 2022, CNIL, which is a French independent information administrative organization, imposed a fine of 150 million euros on Google for its use of dark pattern cookies. The CNIL found that Google had infringed upon users' freedom of consent by making it difficult for them to refuse cookies while making it easy to accept them. The fine was calculated based on several factors, including the number of data subjects affected by the violation, the financial benefits obtained from the breach, and Google's intentional violation of CNIL's recommendation on cookies, despite the organization's extensive communication on the matter. Besides the case with CNIL, another issue associated with Google is that as Google has such a huge network of products, it becomes nearly impossible to have a safe wall to protect personal information. For instance, when the user uses the Google search engine, Google places a cookie on the computer. The collected information is then linked to all the other Google services the user signed in. Counted as Google products, these services do not need to be included as third parties, and thus might be more difficult for the users to manage their private information. However, as the privacy and trust crisis surfaced with the cookie consent, cookies were originally brought up as a much more user-friendly intention. Back in the 90s, the idea of a browsing tracker was first brought up as a boost of better browsing experience for the visitors. Since before it, every visit to a site was the same at the first time, with no record of the visitor at all. Now with the cookies, the user's data would be stored so that the site they are visiting could remember their users' past events to provide better services. Nevertheless, with the unmeasurable fast development of the internet world and the exponential growth of data that could be collected on the internet, cookies are no longer something that users can enjoy freely. Advertisers, noticing the huge profit that could be gained by pushing ads on web users, started to work with web host companies like Google to squeeze more data from the users. According to a report, more than 80% of Google's revenue comes from Google Ads, which generated 147 billion in 2020. Trackers can covertly identify users over time, track them across websites, and build an advertising profile of them. With that being said, what can UX designers do to change the current situation? First of all, we should avoid dark pattern when designing cookies. There are many cookie banners that simply do not use clear copywriting to assist users to make informed decisions. Many of them try to play with the wording of the cookies to let users easily choose to accept all cookies. Others use emotional writings to nudge the users to agree with the cookies. With that being pointed out, clear text with accept and reject options should be shown to the users in a concise way instead. Secondly, many times the description of cookies is too long for the users to digest. The cognitive load becomes unbearable for a web user who at most of the time is trying to get what she or he wants in the smallest amount of time. To avoid that, UX designers and content writers should think of how to explain the core ideas in a more concise way. Last but not least, all the backend information of the data collection should be ready for the users to look at instead of keeping it in a black box. In addition to improving the initial cookie consent design, it's also important for UX designers to consider how to make cookie and data privacy management accessible to users every time they revisit websites. This means providing easy-to-use controls that enable users to review and adjust their preferences at any time. Thirdly, ethical cookie design should be implemented not only on traditional websites, but also on various types of IoT technologies. Since data collected by IoT devices can be out of the scope of data that users would normally perceive and are heavily behavior-oriented, UX designers should consider how to inform users properly about their data being collected and how it will be used. And what can companies like Google do to change the current scene? Transparency is the most fundamental and key point of the whole, and companies should be more upfront about the information they collect from the users. For example, when they are mentioning third parties, information about the third parties should be easy to access for the users. Additionally, it is important for tech giant companies with multiple services to use different cookies for each service instead of employing default opt-in across all products. From a more technical aspect, web companies should be working on providing users with more tools and resources that can help them better protect their privacy besides the cookie consent. For example, Google has recently initiated a privacy sandbox project aiming to provide new ways to store user data by guaranteeing user anonymity throughout the whole process. Last but not least, it is important for companies like Google, which has huge influence on public opinion, to take an active role in raising users' awareness about how to better protect their personal information. For example, companies can partner with government agencies and advocacy groups to promote education and awareness around data privacy issues.